You are going to make the choice anyway. You know that. You have always known that. The only question is whether you will make it honestly or hide behind the excuse that you did not have enough information. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am Epictetus, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining, can you choose rightly without knowing the full cost of your choice? Let me tell you what I see every day. A person stands at a crossroads. They have two options. They weigh them. They calculate. They argue with themselves about outcomes they cannot possibly predict. And then they wait. They call the waiting wisdom. They call it prudence. It is neither. It is fear wearing a philosopher's robe. You never know the full cost of a choice. Not one person in the history of this world has ever had complete information before acting. The question is not whether you have enough. The question is whether you are using the absence of certainty as a reason to avoid the one thing that is actually yours to do, which is choose.
I understand the urgency, but I think you are bypassing something important. The reason people hesitate is rarely cowardice in the simple sense you are describing. There is something deeper happening. When a person stands at that crossroads, they are not just calculating outcomes. They are feeling, often without knowing it, the weight of what this choice might reveal about who they are. The cost they fear most is not external. It is the possibility that making the choice will expose something in themselves they have not been ready to face. The hesitation is not always laziness. Sometimes it is the psyche protecting itself from a confrontation it does not yet have the resources to survive.
You are both assuming the choice is the center of the problem. I am not sure it is. The person at the crossroads is suffering before they choose, while they choose, and usually after they choose. The crossroads is not the source of the difficulty. The belief that a choice can be made correctly, that there is a right answer waiting to be found if only they think hard enough, that is where the suffering begins. The road does not care which direction you walk. The question is whether you are actually walking or standing in the middle arguing with the road.
Lao Tzu, you say the road does not care. Fine. But the person walking it does. And that person has a life to live, obligations to meet, other people depending on them. You cannot dissolve the problem by stepping outside of it. Some of us are in the problem. The Stoic position is not that choice is easy. It is that choice is yours. That is the only ground you have. You can refuse to choose and something will happen anyway. Or you can choose and something will happen. The difference is whether you are present for your own life.
Epictetus, I do not disagree that we must choose. But I want to push on something you are glossing over. You say the choice is yours, but how well do most people actually know themselves when they are making the choices that matter most? What I see in patient after patient is that people make choices they believe are rational and deliberate, and then years later they realize the choice was made by something else entirely. By fear they had not named. By a role they had inherited from a parent and never questioned. By an image of themselves they were trying to protect. The self that chooses is not always the self that is present. And if you do not know that, you can act with tremendous confidence and still be entirely at the mercy of forces you have not examined.
There is something both of you keep doing that I want to name. You are treating the unknown cost as a problem to be solved before the choice. But the cost reveals itself in the living of the choice, not before it. You cannot know what crossing the river costs until you are wet. This is not a failure of knowledge. This is simply what choosing is. The attempt to calculate the full cost in advance is not wisdom. It is a way of staying on the bank and calling it preparation.
Good. We agree on something. You cannot know the full cost. Then why are we still talking about whether you can choose rightly? You make the best assessment you can with what is available to you. You check it against your values. You ask whether this choice is consistent with what you have said you stand for. And then you act. The rightness of the choice is not determined by the outcome. It is determined by the quality of the reasoning and the honesty of the will at the moment you make it. Outcomes are not in your control. The quality of your choosing is.
I want to hold on to something there because I think you just said something that matters more than you let on. You said check the choice against your values, but whose values? The values you were taught, the values your society rewarded, the values you think you hold, or the values you actually live by when no one is watching. The gap between those things is enormous, and most people have never mapped it. A person can make a choice with full commitment and genuine sincerity and still be acting from a value system they absorbed from someone else decades ago and never once examined. I'm not saying this to create paralysis. I am saying that the self-knowledge required for right choosing is itself a practice, and most people have barely begun it.
Both of you are doing the same thing again. You are adding more steps between the person and the choice. Epictetus says, examine your reasoning. Jung says, examine your values. And now the person has 2 more tasks before they can act. But what if the problem is that they are already too much in their own heads? The clearer mind is not always the more examined mind. Sometimes it is the mind that has stopped arguing with itself.
Lao Tzu, I hear you saying that the quiet mind chooses better. Maybe. But a quiet mind that has not done any work is just a numb mind. There is a difference between the stillness that comes from clarity and the stillness that comes from avoidance. I have seen people achieve extraordinary calm by simply refusing to look at what they are doing. That is not wisdom. That is dissociation with good posture.
That is actually a very precise point. What Lao Tzu is describing at its best is what I would call the transcendent function, the capacity to hold 2 opposing forces in tension long enough that something third emerges. A synthesis the ego could not have manufactured on its own, but to get there requires a kind of honest discomfort. You cannot bypass the tension by going quiet before you have actually felt what the tension is. The stillness Lao Tzu points to is real, but it is on the other side of the friction, not before it.
Jung, you are describing a process, and the process is useful. But you are still assuming the person must arrive somewhere before they can act. What I am pointing to is different. It is not the stillness after examination. It is the recognition that the examination itself can become the obstacle. There is a moment when you have looked at something long enough, and more looking does not add clarity, it adds noise. Knowing when that moment has arrived, that is the skill, not the analysis. The recognition of when the analysis is done.
Now we are getting somewhere. Because what you are both describing, from different angles, is a failure of honesty. Jung says people cannot see their own values clearly. Lao Tzu says people keep analyzing when they should stop. Both of those failures come from the same place. The person is not actually being honest with themselves about what they know. They either will not look, or they look too long because they are hoping the looking will change the answer. Honesty is not comfortable, but it is the only thing that actually cuts through.
I would not frame it entirely as dishonesty. I think it is more precise to say that the parts of the self doing the work of avoidance are often genuinely invisible to the person. It is not that they are lying. It is that the lie has become structural. The story they tell themselves about why they are waiting, about why they need more information, about why they cannot yet commit, that story feels completely real from the inside. The work of self-examination is not about catching yourself in a lie. It is about learning to notice the shape of the story before you are fully inside it.
You are both still describing the same person, the person who is struggling with themselves. And there is value in everything you are saying. But I want to ask a different question. Is it possible that the question itself, can you choose rightly without knowing the full cost, is built on a false assumption? It assumes that rightness is something you can secure in advance, that there is a quality called correctness that belongs to the choice itself. But maybe rightness is not a property of the choice. Maybe it is something that develops in how you carry the choice forward.
That is interesting, but it can also become a way of escaping accountability for the original choice. If rightness is only in the carrying, then anyone can say they chose rightly as long as they stayed committed to whatever they chose. That is not a standard. That is rationalization with good lighting.
And yet there is something in what Lao Tzu is saying that cannot be dismissed. We do not always know what we were doing when we made a choice. Sometimes, looking back, we see that a choice we made in apparent confusion was, in some deeper sense, necessary. Not good in a simple moral accounting, but necessary in the way that a crisis that breaks something open can be necessary. The psyche moves toward its own wholeness, and sometimes it does this through choices the ego would never have consciously approved.
The tree does not plan its roots. It grows toward what it needs, and the roots find what can hold them. You can call that unconscious, or you can call it something simpler. Some choices are not made by calculation. They are made by what you are.
I will not argue with that completely. But here is what I will not allow you to take from the person standing at the crossroads right now, today, with a real decision in front of them. I will not allow you to take the concept of responsibility. Whatever else is true, this is true. You are the one who chooses. Not the psyche, not the Tao, not history, you. And you will live with what you chose. That is not a burden. That is the only dignity available to a human being.
I'm not arguing against responsibility. I'm arguing for a wider understanding of what the self is that is doing the responsible choosing. If you do not know what is driving you, you cannot be fully responsible. You can be accountable in the sense that others will hold you to consequences. But responsibility in the deeper sense requires self-knowledge. It requires that you actually know, as honestly as possible, what you are choosing from and why.
You are both right, and you are both looking for a kind of certainty that this question does not offer. Right choosing does not mean choosing with full information. It does not mean choosing from a fully examined self. It means choosing with whatever clarity you have actually earned, and then being present to what the choice reveals as you live it. That is all that is available, and it is enough.
Enough. Let us be honest about what just happened here. Jung is asking you to examine what you do not yet know about yourself. Lao Tzu is asking you to stop using that examination as a delay. And I am telling you that at some point, both of those things have to give way to action. Not reckless action, clear action.
I want to add one more thing before we leave the debate. The choices that haunt people, the ones they revisit for years, are almost never the ones where they lacked external information. They are the ones where they knew something they did not let themselves fully know. They had a felt sense, a hesitation, a discomfort that they overrode because they were afraid of what listening to it would require. The cost they could not calculate was not financial or logistical, it was personal. And it was already there, already present, already speaking before they made the choice.
Then perhaps the question is not whether you knew the full cost. It is whether you were honest about the cost you could already feel.
You have heard the argument. Now hear what the argument was pointing at all along and could not quite say.
Most people believe they are choosing with their minds. They are not. They are choosing with everything they have not yet looked at. The fear they have named caution. The self-image they have called principle. The wound they have wrapped in a story about what they deserve or do not deserve. When you make a choice and something inside you flinches, that flinch is information. Not a reason to stop, not a command to proceed, information. The question is not whether you can choose rightly without knowing the full cost. The question is whether you are willing to be honest about the cost you can already feel. You always know more than you admit. There is a part of you that has already done the accounting. It does not speak in words. It speaks in the quality of your sleep, in the way your attention keeps returning to something, in the feeling of relief or dread that arrives for a moment before you explain it away. Right choosing does not require omniscience. It requires honesty about what is already present. Today, notice one choice you are currently delaying. Do not try to resolve it. Just ask yourself honestly what you already know about it that you have not fully let yourself know. Write it down, one sentence, then sit with it.
You will not have all the information. You never will. The question was never about the information. It was about whether you are willing to be honest with the one person who is always in the room with you when you choose. You already know what that honesty costs. The only question left is whether you are willing to pay it. Choose well. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu, 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.